It's going live now.
The system fighting, my people, the system shaking. We want to the teaching, but they not one listening. The system fighting, my people, the system shaking. We want to the teaching, but they not one listening. When they killing people every day, then the system shaking. Worker crying for salary, then the system shaking. Teachers working hard for no pay, then the system shaking. When the children selling on the street, then the system shaking. Back to the hall and nothing doing, then the system shaking. Then the system shaking. The system shaking with our suffering. When they feel people benefiting, misusing our resources like the thing they're doing. But we will kill a cigarette, yeah, the cat the treat. Living our way, the good thing, yeah, the zombie. But come and say, all I know is will stop. You come and say to the system, but everybody doing job. Come and say, everybody doing job. The case of CBB coming, but everybody doing job. I say, if I talk, I say, everybody doing job. True, Elisana coming, everybody doing job. You got the system shaking, no food security. You got the system fighting, no health facility. You got the system shaking, bread, you will go to jail. You got the system fighting, corruption and waste. When they killing people every day, then the system shaking. Worker crying for salary, then the system shaking. Teachers working hard but no pay, then the system shaking. When the children selling on the street, then the system shaking. Back to the hall and nothing doing, then the system shaking. Then the system shaking. It is what it is, man. Yeah, if you come from Monserrato, Repaso or any country, I want you listening because Liberia is our only country. Selling people making this funky yellow shit. I want you to know that it's fake. They do wicked, they can kill. But everything coming finished, coming out a record setup. Cause the men are money eater. You treat everybody equal. Play how in the future, he not there for citizens to suffer. They say hope for cheat, but now this that we can see. He will Google platform, send no pulling that they line. Look at people full of investment. I hope you understand. Oh, the people blindly bringing lies with propaganda. I call them what them blow. Bring the social grow. But Kumi coming, everything said will be set. We enjoy our rest, and the system will be fresh. Yeah, when they killing people every day, then the system shaking. Worker crying for salary, then the system shaking. Teachers working hard but no pay, then the system shaking. When the children selling on the street, then the system shaking. Back to the hall and nothing doing, then the system shaking. Then the system shaking. When they killing people every day, then the system shaking. Worker crying for salary, then the system shaking. Teachers working hard but no pay, then the system shaking. When the children selling on the street, then the system shaking. Back to the hall and nothing doing, then the system shaking. Then the system shaking. I hear bless it, yo. Bless it, David and your baby, bless it, yo. Bless it. Bless it, yo. Bless it. Everyone you have bless it, yo. Bless it. Yeah, come when you did, yo. When you did. Come when you did, yo. When you did. The sign of come when you did, yo. When you did. When you did, yo. When you did. By the book when you did, yo. When you did. By the book when you did, yo. When you did. See people when you did, yo. I say Batoba, when you did, yo. When you did. When you did, yo. People, I got you. Yeah, CPP all the way.
Hello.
Hello.
Fahnbulleh. How you doing today?
How are you? I'm good. What's the latest?
Man, you know all the noise out there, man.
About what?
All the noise. Well, the noise right now is about LISGIS corruption, right? But before we get into stuff like that, let's just say hello to all the people out there, the people who come to listen, the people who will listen later. We appreciate you being able to check out what we got to share with you. And as usual, we expect your input. You know, we try to monitor the comment interfaces, what we're talking about, and how we can interject them. We even sometimes invite you, the audience, to come join us. You know, if you got a point, you're making a solid point, especially a contrarian point, we expect you to come on and back it because we believe in free speech. We believe in putting the ideas on the table. and moving out. So yeah, Vida, how you doing? Which inbox I should check now? I got many inboxes: Messenger, WhatsApp, regular text, email. So let me know. But anyway, welcome to the show today. We still on this thing. We have to reimagine Liberia. We have to restart Liberia. We got to rebuild Liberia because things just don't seem to be working. So we got a couple of major issues we want to look at today. The whole issue with the LISGIS and what's happening there, and also the issue with biometrics and something we've been discussing for months. But George has put pen to paper on the issue, and it seems like it's attracting people's attention. So, George, where do you want us to start? Do we start with LISGIS or
let's start. Let's start with the LISGIS stuff.
Right. So just to kind of give a big picture before we get into the details, LISGIS is the
You're freezing.
Liberia statute that handles. Am I freezing?
You're on now. You're okay now.
All right. Yeah, you look like you were twitching for a second too. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I'm trying to clean up a computer over here.
Oh, okay. So LISGIS main purpose is to be able to do all the statistical and geoinformational stuff for the Republic of Liberia. They are like a service center, a service bureau for all the different ministries, agencies that actually need information. Many of the socioeconomic reports are supposed to be done by LISGIS. So their role is very critical. But one of the most important things they have to do is the national census, the housing and population census. That's their responsibility. And by law, every 10 years, we are supposed to do a census. The last census was done in 2008. And actually, in 2018, we were supposed to do a census. But it's understandable. The We Are Propo government were just coming in. So there was some level of tolerance that they couldn't do the census.
But it's not understandable. Because LISGIS is supposed to have a continuity. You see, there are agencies in the government whose function have to remain constant, irrespective of who is in power.
You have no argument yet. That's why there's some agencies that are tenure and where there should be a level of continuity, but government is continuous. Unfortunately for us, because and that's one of the issues separate from this that I've always tried to push. We got to legislate our development agenda, because everybody comes in and start from somewhere new and start with a different focus. So there's hardly there was not much continuity from the George Weah government to this current government. But let's get back to the whole LISGIS issue. And I agree with George to some extent, there should be no tolerance. But granted that first year, 2018, they didn't do a census. Some people can understand. But 2019 came, no census. Then I believe you can blame COVID if you want, but there were other people functioning in their governments and doing what they had to do during the COVID period. 2021, no census. We in 2022, there's been a lot of noise. All year, the census pre-test was done, and it was done pretty well from all indications. But now to actually implement the census, we have been exposed to a whole bunch of issues. The corruption associated with LISGIS, the leadership debacle in terms of by law, in the absence of the director general, who is Francis Ray, I believe that's his name, the deputy director for statistics and data processing, which is the person of Alex Williams, should have been acting rather than the deputy for information, who is Wilma Smith, was placed there instead. There's been this whole yo-yo, and then they got multiple accounts there. I can't present yet, like I understand the the census basket account versus the LISGIS account, and what specific currencies should go in there and should not go in there. At a high level, when I look at it, the placement of monies and how they were sent from the Ministry of Finance to the LISGIS folks really needs to be investigated. It needs to be looked at. Alex Williams, who resigned, and he was the deputy at LISGIS, he had actually done a presentation, and that was not his first time really talking about these issues, but most recently on Spoon over the last 2 days, he has been on there and really revealing a lot to the people of Liberia. And it's important that people don't slight what he's saying, or not because we are so numb now to corruption that we just accept what he's saying and say, oh, you know, that how the people can do. No, those things are just not acceptable. If we continue to be complacent with the acts of corruption, it will seem and morph into complicity. That means we are accepting this thing, we are allowing it to happen. And actually, at the end of the day, the people have the power. It's just that because we have not been taught our civics properly, we don't understand the role of people in this governing process called democracy. So a lot of times, things that our responsibility that we need to act on, we don't tend to step up to the plate and act on it. And then we got a lot of people, unfortunately, because we have had intimidating governments. This is not the first one, but this one is really petty, and they take it to levels that, you know, to a large extent have not been seen before. And because of that, a whole bunch of people are extremely intimidated to speak up, you know, to just talk about the basic things, the basic principles that they stand for that are being violated. People are scared to talk about those things because they feel there will be retribution. And we're seeing that, you know, today, right now. Alex is somewhere. He's scared. He's in fear. He fears children will probably be, you know, attacked or something will be done to them. And when you have that kind of environment, yes, people may want to participate, but people are scared. Some people, even if they just give an indication of any kind of, you know, opposition support or any kind of dissension or divergence from what the common, you know, sense or belief or statements are within the ruling party, they get ostracized right away. They get kind of bullied. They have the potential to lose their jobs. You know, and then there's a whole bunch of things. We got the Freedom of Information Act, no information coming. We got supposed to be transparent and accountable, and our different agencies or government supposed to present. They don't do that. So to a large extent, all of these factors have been flowing, and LISGIS was supposed to be implementing this census this year. Now, the census is tied into the elections too, because it is through the census information that the National Elections Commission will be able to, well, let's start first with the legislature. Through the census information is how the legislature can decide how they can adequately divide Liberia into districts. In the Constitution, they have the number 20,000, but we've passed that already because 20,000 a district times 73 district, it doesn't even, you know, approximate the full population. Right. Yeah. So they have to, and then I think they move up to 35,000 with all, you know, an actual
change in the Constitution.
Right. So at this point, the legislature need to meet and really make a decision on this particular situation as LISGIS. They need to call these people to book. The Ministry of Justice need to take action. I mean, serious accusations have been made in other functional countries and operating countries. We will actually hear that, oh, Senator has been called in for investigation. Wilmer Smith has been called in for investigation. Or maybe if there's a preponderance of evidence, they will have been arrested already. George, am I wrong?
No, you're not. Not at all. Not at all.
So these things are very serious allegations and accusations against the system. And documentation were provided. And a good thing about anything with bank account, there's a paper trail. There's an electronic trail. It can be followed. It can be ascertained who controlling those accounts and all the activities that are going on. Some seem like my network is kind of shaky, folks. I'm sorry. But it is very important that we take these things seriously, that people stand up for it, because at the end of the day, it's the people's money. It's money that should have been going into a process. And because the monies that were intended for the LISGIS census was not going to the process, we have all these issues with the different locations they had set up for training where they didn't pay the people for the training. The landlords were upset. We had a situation with the enumerators. The enumerators were supposed to be, the facilitators and people who were doing the training were supposed to be paid $50 a day, for about 10 days, plus the transportation, $20. We know everywhere in Liberia, transportation is costly. And they were never given these money. So these people are protesting when the census was supposed to start. People were people were actually protesting today. I was sent a video of people again protesting because this stuff is just not working. So something has to be done. I don't know when the cooler heads will prevail and step in and put a stop to this facade of a census and do something. But the level of
here's my thing, right? And here's my thing. We got to. Huh? We got to do a couple of things.
Okay.
The first thing we got to do is we got to decide, is there a hard stop date for this census to be done? Is there a hard stop date? And if there is a hard stop date, if there is a hard stop date, are we still within the parameters to continue? Because maybe, look, the reality of the situation is we may not be able to do a census.
Well, I don't know why you say may not, but if we got some technical people in there, they can do that evaluation. The aptitude test that they can test those people who were trained. But just to go back to your first question about hard stop date, if we want to utilize the census for these elections, yes, I believe there's a hard stop date, but I don't think it's immediate. Because if you look at the election schedule and the gap between the time that voter registration is done to the time they put out the voters list, people assess them.
But let me tell you, they may have to add new legislative districts.
That's what. But yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
So I would think it's a hard stop.
I said there is a hard stop, but we got to walk that backward. How long will it take the legislature to define a district? How long will it take in actual time, instead of the gap that exists between those activities I just listed? What it would take after the census point to define the voters, to register, to define a district, do the amalgamated units, all the different precincts and polling places, register the people, check the registration list. So they got to walk backward from the last handling of that list, wherever it is, when our final list comes out, whatever by statutory means. So that final list can come out probably, let's say 1 month, or at the time campaign starts, 1 month before elections. So that means that's September, right? So let's say September 10th, since the election is October 10th. So we walk backward from that September 10th point and see all the activities that are supposed to take place, the alignment between the census and the voters registration and the legislative apportionment of the different districts, what will happen there, plus
Isaac, I would just tell you, you continue to remain hopeful about our ability to execute. I'm not.
Well,
because there are so many parts to this thing, and if everybody is not on the same page, it doesn't happen. So, for example, let's look at it from the position of the legislature. The legislature has to be able to provide oversight to LISGIS and say, we need you to give us a timeline. Have a committee. Let's say they set up a census committee. Okay. And every week or every 2 weeks, that census committee will present a status report to the legislature.
So
These are the things
that gotta be weekly. At this point, it has to be weekly.
Okay, fine. But then we have to have a process defined as to how we're going to meet the benchmarks required to successfully execute the census.
I'm in agreement. I mean, I've like looked at the proposed census schedule, seen the activity. I've looked at the next schedule that from prior years, and the most recent one they put on the website, which is a little disjointed. But at the end of the day, I still think it's doable. That's why you may say I'm optimistic, but I believe that it's a caveat, with the right technical leadership, the right oversight, they are able to do it. But that's a big if. We have not seen any competence truly demonstrated from planning and organization. We know NEC with the whole procurement situation, that's another story. And we'll touch on that when we talk about the whole biometric. So all of these things are just not aligned right now for anybody to have confidence in the system that things can take place. And I understand that perspective of yours. But because we need for these things to happen, for us to have a free, fair, transparent, open elections, it's necessary for us to be aggressive how we pursue it. But I just don't see any sense of urgency in the people who lead us.
Exactly. That's the point that I was alluding to. Because even if the legislature said there is a sense of urgency and we need to provide oversight, and this is going to be our oversight schedule so we can know how this thing is proceeding. But I don't see it. I mean, the truth of the matter is we get nothing out of the legislature except for them complaining.
Or wanting money.
Or wanting money.
Yeah, so folks, it's really sad where our country is. I see, Representative Larry Yonkwe, he has been trying to push and make a case because he's a professional, what do you call him?
Statistician?
No, the people, I don't know, geographer or something like that. I forgot the title they gave me. But he understands the whole census thing. He's been making a case. But the support has not been there. The active involvement of the legislatures just seems absent. And it's just not explainable. I can see how these people can be so concerned with things that are so fundamental to a key process of critical elections that are coming up that, for most people, and like my man said, this was the man we thought could change the country, but he's been a big failure, my man Christian Williams, and he's right, 100% right. But all measures, George Weah and his government have failed. They have failed abysmally. But now, can we push our nation forward? Those other people who've been on the fence, who haven't been involved, our legislature, other key stakeholders, our civic society, our religious society, can they really come together and put pressure that we move towards and we be successful in getting to this point where we can have free, fair, open elections? And that is the major concern for me. Everything else we're going to talk about drives towards that point. Where is the tipping point for us to say we're going in the right direction or we're about to fall off the cliff? I don't think we're at the cliff yet, but some people feel we are at the cliff. But we're
on the road to the cliff.
Yes, we are. But we have decision points where if we make the right decisions, critical decisions, decisions that are far-sighted, not just for the immediate gratification or exclusion or elimination of some people, no. A decision that reflects what would be the best interest of Liberia as we move forward. So this LISGIS situation.
But let me just throw this in here also. I have to, at this point, fault the opposition as a group. Okay? Because in the absence of executive leadership, in the absence of legislative oversight, the opposition needs to be the people who step into that breach and say, this is what is required. And I don't see all of them doing that.
I will add the fourth estate as also somebody culpable in this case as well. I believe the press has a significant role to drive some of the national processes. And for me, I don't see the real independent press people who are real issues driven and are able to, be influencers, influence the minds of our people. I just see everybody looking at the whole press landscape as some kind of economic opportunity, as opposed to really being a branch, quote unquote, branch of government that maintains a certain responsibility and obligation, from a civic perspective, from a national perspective, from a patriotic perspective, to impact what's happening in the country. Those voices in the press, it just seems like it's absent. Like there's no powerful media voice right now or set of voices that will drive the agenda, the national agenda, and keep people focused. I mean, is somebody out there think I'm wrong? Please tell me who is that voice of reasoning. Like back in the day among the prelate, it was Bishop Michael Francis, Archbishop. So who is that voice today among those religious people? Who is that voice in the press? We have some powerful press people before. It's just like there's such a vacuum across the board on leadership, especially the right kind of leadership for our country. And until we can wake up some people, or some people can just rise up, on self-initiative, it's going to be tough. And George's point about the opposition is absolutely correct. There are numerous things opposition leadership can collaborate on. The LISGIS situation is one of them. The next situation, another one.
Because even even the opposition, they have members in the legislature.
Unfortunately, you can say the ANC Legislative Caucus or the UP Legislative Caucus, the opposition Legislative Caucus. I don't know that those structures really exist from an action perspective. They don't seem to be aligned ideologically. They don't seem to be aligned on issues that they all stand together, 5, 6 bipartisan group of legislators, covering both houses. George, can you still hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay. So we don't see that happening. We do not see that happening, and it's really, really frustrating that our people cannot really do this stuff together. They cannot get together in the best interest of the country. Some people talk about opposition collaboration. It's just about, let's get on one ticket. It's not about only ticket. It's about the day-to-day governance of the country. Exactly.
And this is what is missing.
And they all say George Weah as an absent leader is clear. Even when he physically, present, he's absent. Okay. So in that space, who's really stepping up? We need more from our opposition leadership, including Mr. Cummings. There has to be more active engagement, active management of this country from an opposition perspective. It has to happen. Look, the country is in a bad shape, folks. When our president can leave for 23 days, supposedly, and
where did he go?
Well, there were 3 locations, but the clear destinations of the itinerary were missing. I think he went to Dubai, then he went to another location for some presentation to France, I believe. And Macron was not in France when he was there. So what was the purpose of going to France, whether just to a meeting or whatever, just not clear. If we go to the executive management website, we can see or somebody had rotating the letter that they wrote to the House to say what they were doing. And then he had from the 15th to the 23rd to go to the World Cup. But the World Cup starts on the 20th. That's opening day. And the U.S. plays on the 21st when he wants to see his son. And what the point I was trying to make earlier, in terms of the travel mandate for government, rule number 14 says the president can get $2,000 a day, and that's fine, right? But right above rule number 14, they say if you travel, it should be a maximum of 7 days. So how can you see rule number 14 that's under rule number 13 to give the president his $2,000, per diem or whatever to travel, but you can't see the fact that it should stop to only 7 days, but you let him go for 23 days. So all of these things are things that affect where we are. Critical decisions are on the table, and the president is traveling to meetings or conferences that representatives can go to. Because I think one of them was climate change. To go make a 3 speech of climate change, if they take that paper from the president, ask the president. So this, what the real intent message that you're trying to convey in your speech? I doubt it, President, we will be able to share that information with people. No, I'm serious. And yes,
he needs constant coaching.
We recognize the incompetency. We recognize his inability to do some of these things. Unfortunately, the reality is the youth supported he was in a place that there was no other politician, and to a large extent, and just want him to be that person. But this is not about him, my people. This is about our country. This is about the nation that we want, the environment we want to operate in. There's just so many things that at this point in time in the world that are beneficial for Liberia that we can have an advantage for compared with other countries. Whether it's producing food today, whether it's our carbon credits, whether it's us being able to be like a real full-scale, even George doesn't like familiar, but a business processing outpost for so many different institutions and organizations where our young people can have jobs. We have that capability. And we see there are so many smart young people, they just need some guidance.
Isaac, again, the capabilities that you talk about, they can only be actualized if we even had legislators who understood what they were. That's the problem. I mean, I'll give it to you. Our legislators are slow.
They're slow. Some of them are corrupt. Some of them have no.
I mean, some of these people are slow on the scale of retarded slow. And I don't want people to say, "Oh, you're insulting them." These are people who have been legislators for 5 or 6 years. These are people who have traveled
the same system, doing the same thing, not bringing new information.
No new information, no new ideas, no. Why are we still doing it this way? Is there a different way to do it? Okay?
I don't know how many
and Mark, and I want people to understand this. This is one of the things I say about Liberia. You can have a guy walking on the street with 10 toes on the ground. The minute he gets a government position, whether he's a legislator or he's a minister, he knows everything.
And that's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
That's the Dunning-Kruger. Nobody can tell him what he doesn't know.
And it's two ways. One, he feels you think he's stupid if you're telling him nonsense, he's a big shot.
Right.
And two, that insecurity that the credit will come to you. No, you got a title. Credit will come to you. Some of us don't.
And they go about, as opposed to hiring people who are competent, who can help them, they hire people who are less competent than they are. So they are stuck in this rut, and it's almost like, I'll give you an example. In the US, the people who run, who are legislators, all of them are not smart people.
No, they're not.
But they have staff that are smart, that can explain to a Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is what this bill means. You understand? And this is what it means for your district.
And you know what? I think our legislators probably have more people on their staff than most of those these U.S. legislators. They got like 13
who do nothing.
Got 17.
Because at the end of the day, on our legislator staff, the legislators believe that they are the experts in whatever it is you want to discuss.
That's that. And unfortunately, they're not. They are far from it. Most of them are far from it. Some of them.
So I don't see us doing a census, man. I just don't. I mean, I don't see it.
Okay, then what do you think about the election? So how do we get through voter registration? Just anybody come? How do they redistrict? Just projections?
I don't know that we redistrict.
We just
keep the other thing they could do is they could go on the existing districts, complete the census. Let's say they go on the existing district and they say, okay, Grand Bassa got 2 additional districts. And then maybe you hold the elections for those 2 additional districts later on. But I'm just saying, at this point, you don't want to hold up the entire process.
I think we need to apply some people thinking. Maybe I should set up a Zoom call with some people, because that's some serious thinking right there. We really, really got to look at the schedule. I believe it's 11 months, right?
Yes. With Steven Johnson page, it's good to see
10
you.
Months now. 10 months.
Right. We got to start Steven Johnson page. We got to start thinking.
That man reading that Johnson at that page 2 he meal. I
thought his name was Steven Johnson page. Okay, well, you see.
SJ, what's up?
I thought his name was Steven Johnson page the second. Behold that page 2. But what I'm saying is we got to start now thinking strategically. What happens if we can't do the census, but by law, by the Constitution, it will impair representation, right, if that count is not done. So let's say we go using the last legislative map. Okay? But when we complete the census, then we have to look at how we deal with it, because here's a problem that idea introduces. Suppose Nimba loses a legislative district.
It's not even possible.
No, but somebody might lose a district.
How you lose it?
It is possible.
No,
no. My point is, when you do the new census, if you've had a lot of a movement of people from one location to the next, you can lose a district.
So they would talk about Rosas and Grand Crew like that, not Nimba.
Well, you see, I just threw Nimba there because I didn't want
Rosas, Grand Crew, River G. Those people in the South, it would talk about some of them could lose, because let's say, okay, so the limit, you can only have up to 100 districts, right? Maximum by the Constitution, supposedly. Maybe they have to change that. Right now,
but you got to change it, because if you say each district must have this number, right, then you got to constantly increase the size of the district.
Right, because right now we are 73. So if we let's say we get 3 million voters today, right, and we divide that by 73, on average, what is that? 1, 2, 3 divided by 73.
41.
41,000? All right. But then what if, anyway, you don't have to get to the average or maximum, it can be less. So they will still give them the current district. They will not take it from there, even if they got 10,000 compared to the average 41. But your point you making now, because to compensate for that 10 or 15,000 in River G, there may be districts in Montserrat now that will have like 50,000 people, 55,000 people. Those are the ones that have the potential to be further bifurcated into maybe 2, 3 districts, whatever. So that's where, after the elections now, they can say, oh, well, we look at District 6, which is highly populated, but just right around Duporo, we think there's 41,000 people here. So we split Duporo. You who got elected, you can stay here. We got open slot here.
We'll open up and another seat opens.
Yes. I think, I think that's...
So I mean, what I would do is I would say, listen, let's focus right now on what we need to do to hold the election successfully.
Okay? I mean, that's something we have to do, because we don't want to move that election.
We have to do the census. Okay, but we got to also recognize that even for the election, they have to do voter registration.
Yes.
So can we do voter registration and census in parallel?
If you agree not to, redistrict, then probably.
Fine. Okay. And then we say 6 to 9 months later, I mean, 6 to 9 months after the election,
mm-hmm.
we will have the district by-election for the new districts. But at this point, we gotta, if we don't reach some sort of an accommodation, what we end up with is confusion and chaos.
I agree. We need a clear roadmap right now. We need a clear roadmap of exactly how things will unfold.
I'm not one of those people who says, let's burn the whole thing down. No, what I'm saying is, let's figure out what the accommodations we can reach. Let's get a special dispensation from the Supreme Court and say, this is what we are faced with. This is how we want to do it. Get civil society and everybody to sign off on it. And we move forward.
And that kind of broad-based discussion, this particular government shies away from it. And that's what needs to happen because they don't know everything. They have not solved the problems. They actually complicate and compound the problem. So until we can get them to see that they need help, they need other people to come in. They need other voices at the table. Those voices don't have to be CDC voices. CDC voices are limited. I don't care what they do. The CDC voices are limited. The people at the table today don't represent the best potential of what we have in Liberia. So for these national people, it doesn't have to be only your people at the table. It's what's best for the country. Get those individuals. And we got expertise all over this world. Liberians who are competent and who can come and help. Some of them not even asking for a dime. But just that mental security, insecurity that we have from some of the people in positions, they reject these people. And it's just sad that they do that. So I hope, we have pushed on this LISGIS issue. I guess they will be on Spoon again today talking about it. Another point I want to make is that, the young man really feels threatened, and you can see the demonizing attempts against him now on social media with people lying. There was one guy on there today talking about supposedly he had gone to some birthday party at Mr. Cummings' place. I mean, just out of the blue, December 7th was Mr. Cummings' birthday. There was no party that Alex Williams went to. He has never even seen Mr. Cummings.
But let's roll this back. What is wrong with Alex? Okay, one of the hallmarks.
Well, when you even bring nothing wrong with it, then somebody can talk the nonsense. I'm just saying, people are starting to lie and demonize, and people will see a lot of that information out there. Okay, Fahnbulleh Patrick came up with something about Alex compromising his security, and he got arrested and stuff like that after I don't know how many years. So whether it's true, it's not true, there will be a lot of things coming out against this young man simply because he has stood up, okay, and said, I want to be a patriot. In this case, LISGIS, the board of LISGIS, they are corrupt. They have not been doing things the right way. The census is unprofessional. It's not properly planned. The funds for the census not going to the census. We need to do things differently. And that's his crime, against those people who want to protect their personal interests. And I'm just saying this, so other people out there can start to relate and maybe try to, support Alex in one way or the other, because I don't even know who his children are and what the potential threat level, but I just got that message. After this show, I will go and start looking to see who can help, who can do something towards those young people, because this practice over the last few years of people disappearing and people dying and people being hunted down because they say something or because they do something or because they say something opposite to this government's interest, that they don't have a right to live. They don't have a right to socialize or be out. They got to be in.
And that's, I think that's the point that I always want to come back to when Liberians make these offhand comments about, or where he was at Alec Cummings' party. Exactly where in the law does it prohibit him from going to a party given by anybody?
Nowhere.
The Constitution, Article 14, guarantees your right to association. It's not your right to a football association. It's not your right to a basketball association. It's your right to mix and mingle with anybody that you choose to mix and mingle. And for one of the things I continue to say to Liberians who don't understand how rights are, you don't need you don't need permission.
No,
to exercise a right.
And I remember when I used to, as a member of the CDC, when it was time, the right to demonstration, the right to march, don't block the traffic, but all of us can march on the street and be going one direction. That's a
exactly.
Right. We have the right to assemble any one place. As long as we're in blocking traffic, we're not doing this. So for people who are doing that few years ago to now see total opposition to people engaging or people doing stuff, it's just amazing to me. So
it's not amazing. What it tells me is they never believed it to begin with.
Hey, you got
they use the Constitution as a cudgel against the people they don't like. They withhold the rights given in the Constitution against the people that they don't like, and they apply it to themselves.
They do. And the thing is, I mean, politics is, why does it have to be like a blood sport in Africa? Yeah, the highest stakes are on the line. You don't just see these people just killing each other, killing the families of people who have, diverse viewpoints from them. No.
But I have an answer to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me hear your answer.
The answer to that is very simple. Because we have nothing else, we don't have a developed economy. When somebody loses their political status, they've lost their life.
You remember
they've lost everything.
You just said it. How somebody can be walking 10 toes on the street, and by the time they become minister, but
you make him minister. You make him minister. He's gonna get a car. He's gonna get a car. He's gonna get a housing allowance. He will have a driver. He will have a cook. He will have gas slip.
And you gotta get multiple Jews beyond it.
And he will have the allure of being the minister, where when he goes into social settings, he pays for nothing.
That's true. That comes with the package sometimes. But
okay,
in addition to that,
so everywhere he shows up is minister. Now, if this guy were a businessman who was successful, okay, if he lost his seat, it doesn't matter to him.
That's true.
Because he earns less money from the legislature than he does from his business.
That's fact.
And that's why it's very important in Africa for us to develop a private sector.
It is so critical for people. It is so critical, and that's why people don't understand that the job creation and the ability to create those jobs, to attract people who can help us create those jobs, that's the forte of Mr. Cummings, and that's why they need somebody like that who can do that, who has that network, who can walk in the boardroom, who can speak the language of the people and bring them, and at the same time protect Liberian interests, which is very critical to any kind of foreign direct investment that happens in the country. So, and I was going to add to what you were saying is that people now tend to treat some of these people differently because of the sycophancy that's in the country. All of a sudden, to some people, these people become geniuses. They know everything. They can't be wrong. And then they get their own following, and that devolves in terms of how the societal structure is in interaction and everything. So it is a major problem. But I think we touched on this subject enough, and today is not the last day. We surely LISGIS is a continuous thing right now until we get resolution. But I think the suggestion that you made that we got to look at this strategically, I think we need to get some people, into a little Zoom conference or something and really talk about it, really, break down the whole election process and what we can do. What is that hard stop? What is that point that after that, we can even think about census. Or, like you were suggesting, can it still be done parallel, but they will keep the current district distribution
districts, right,
and move on. So yeah, so I think we touched on that subject enough now. You did an article that a lot of people are very interested in. Some people texted me now to send in the article because they were down my distribution list. So tell us, Josh, tell us.
Well, basically, I wrote an article, and it's on front page, and the title of the article is that. The title of the article is.
You want me to help you with that? We gotta know it. In Liberia,
in Liberia, the NEC has neither the legal nor statutory authority to produce biometric IDs.
Okay. So, what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, what the law? What I did was I went back and I read the act creating the National Identification Registry.
Right.
And after reading the law, it became clear to me that the way the National Identification Registry was created, it is the only body in the country that is authorized to produce biometric identifications. It's not saying that other people can't produce identifications for other things. But what the act does and it establishes is that the National Biometric Identification System is the foundational identifying a card or number for the country.
Right.
Every other ID that you create must be based on that thing.
That's the system of proof.
Right. So let's come to the NEC. But let me throw out this concept. The National Biometric ID and the number, if you get that, it identifies you, but it doesn't confer on you any other privileges or rights beyond the fact that it identifies you. So let's say you have a National Biometric ID. It's not a driver's license.
No, it's not.
Okay? There are certain things that are established by the Ministry of Transportation as to what a person must do to qualify to get a driver's license. Okay? It doesn't give you a medical license. The Ministry of Health has certain determinants that says this is what you need to provide before we can give you a license as a doctor or as a nurse. So if we think about it in the same vein, the voter registration / ID is essentially a license to vote. It says that this particular person can vote because they have met these qualifications. They are a Liberian citizen, they're over 18 at the time of the election, and then it says, but even though you are over 18 and you can vote, you can only vote in this location for these people on the ticket. Okay, so the identifying you as a person is not the role of the NEC. The NEC in the past has assumed that role because of the absence of the National Biometric Identification System.
Right. Or just a National Identification System, period.
Right. Here's the problem that it creates. One, you have the NEC and NASCOR. Essentially, well, let me go back. So the way this thing is created, just like LISGIS is supposed to be a service bureau, the National the National Identification Registry is also a service bureau.
But just read that portion of the law that states that all the different agencies of identification have to come to them to.
They have to come to them. So let's say you need a passport. The first thing you need to do, or if you need a passport, the National Identification Registry will have a biometric person in the passport office. So they will do your biometrics for your passport. But the funding for that will actually come from the Bureau of Passports. Okay, civil service. If civil service has a biometric program for their 33,000 employees, that biometric program or identification will be done by the National Identification Registry, and the civil service will have to transfer whatever budget they have for that thing to the NIR. What the NEC is doing is saying, we're not going to give you guys that money. Instead, we are going to take over your function.
And I don't think that sense of interagency dependencies and service is something we do in Liberia, or people even really understand how it works. That's what
but as a result, what you have is you have the National Identification Registry that has no budget. And technically, it shouldn't have a budget because it's a service agency. Okay? So different agencies contract with it to fulfill its mission of identifying people. And it's not just citizens that they're identifying everybody who has a right to live in Liberia. So what we end up with is the NEC performing a function that by law it cannot perform.
Right, and the law is clear. This is the organization that's supposed to do biometrics.
So from a national security perspective, what we also end up with now is the NEC will produce 3.5 million biometric IDs that they have to maintain financially.
Right.
And then we're demanding that the NIR produce 5 million biometric IDs that they have to maintain. But here's the thing, that 3.5 million that's produced by the NEC is a subset
of the 5 million.
Of the 5 million. So what you're literally doing is you are duplicating the requirements, you're duplicating the expenditure, or you simply aren't going to get one done.
Or maybe both.
Or both.
Yeah. So
that's where we are. And I'm saying it's time for the legislature to step in and say, you don't have the authority to do this. Okay? So the money that you have budgeted, you need to contract with the NIR, give them the list of your requirements, and let them do what they need to do to get this done.
And when do you think we'll ever get to that point for our legislators to stand up like that?
Well, if they don't, if the legislature doesn't stand up on it and we have a change of government, the next president can say this is how it's going to be done. Because the NIR is in violation of the law. Now, let me tell you what I'm saying, what I'm thinking. Because the NEC is taking on a function that it is not authorized to do, and that function affects a civil right. A citizen can go to court, and this would go directly to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Because all matters of civil rights go to the Supreme Court.
And that was one person's message to me today. Oh, that judge goes through them.
A citizen can go to the Supreme Court and seek an injunction barring the NEC from doing this because it's not in its mandate.
Especially the first-time voters, they probably need to do it. No, any voter need to do it.
Any voter can do it.
Anybody needs to do that. Seriously, it's very important, and people may take it for a joke. But let's say the NEC wanted what? Initially, they wanted 91 million to implement this.
Right.
Or whatever amount, some crazy amount. But now I think it's down to like 12 or 13 million dollars they're supposed to use. Well, actually, just only for the biometrics is 12 million. So if, let's say, NIR hasn't been doing much, let's say they only got 50 or 60,000 records already, but they have a process that can be refined and be more effective with that money.
Exactly.
Start from scratch. Even if they bring in a different vendor. Because it looks like there's some connection between that particular.
But at least we would establish here that this is the vendor we are going forward with from this point forward, from this point on.
Right.
So
get the appropriate
the things we would solve is student IDs, all of those things.
All government student IDs.
All government student IDs, all civil service IDs, all the biometrics for passports, all of those things we would solve.
And it will give us the opportunity to collapse whatever they're doing at National Social Security into
at NASCORP. Because whatever NASCORP is doing right now with identification is illegal. Because the law specifically says that the number created by the National Biometric Identification System is the number that will be used as the Social Security number. So any number that Social Security is producing outside of that number is an illegal number.
So all these things need to be reconciled. Again, we know we have reached out to some of our lawmakers already, but I think we should be more persistent. Put a formal letter together, attach your article to it, and send it to these folks, as many of them as we know. Let somebody be a champion for the people. Let somebody be a champion for cost savings in government. Let somebody be a champion for us doing the right thing. But it's like people, they just do it for the fun of it instead of it actually being a passion or a mission. Like government is doing things the right way, we're in the right space. And I don't know how long we're going to take to do that. I don't know. I really, really don't know. But is there anything else you want to share on your article?
I mean, that's the gist of the article. And if people want to jump in and ask questions.
Yeah. I mean, folks, you feel free to ask questions. But somebody had made a comment, and I think we need to talk about it in terms of the identification, the physical identification itself. So they asked, if NEC does a paper ID that's not biometric, it's just manual, is that fine?
They can do that. They can do that perfectly. So let me give you an example, Isaac. Let me give you an example. You have a national ID, right? You go to the Department of Motor Vehicle and you want a driver's license.
You got a license.
They're not going to say your national ID is your driver's license.
No, it's not.
They're going to give you a driver's license. They're going to give you a card, possibly with your picture, with the qualifying information, with the class of driver that you are. Maybe you're a truck driver, maybe you're a car driver, commercial. They're going to give you a license, which is a separate document that qualifies you to drive. The NEC can do the same thing. However, if we wanted to save money, the NEC, when it made its requirement to the National Biometric ID, for the National Biometric ID, it will say include the person's current voting district, right? Mm-hmm. Have an indicator that this card belongs to a Liberian national. And that's it.
That's it.
And that card would qualify as a correct voter ID. Now, the only thing the National Identification Registry would have to give to NEC is a voter roll, is essentially a roll of all citizens divided by voting precinct.
And it could be just a view into that particular query.
It could be a view that they can look at permanently.
And
as a matter of fact, the NEC could then run that query even the day before elections. So if you turn 18 the day before election, you qualify to vote.
You can vote. You can vote. You can carry a national ID card. If they do it,
you can carry a national ID to your polling place, and boom. And here's the other thing. We could even begin to greater increase the franchise of people. We could say, let's say you are living in Lofa, when you got your national ID. But you moved to Monrovia and you're now in District 5. You could fill out a District 5 provisional ballot and say, this is where I live.
You're asking for too much now.
Okay, no more. What's going on? Isaac, you stopped. Isaac. I told this man, but it's cheap internet he got. So it would be good to know if people had questions, if you all can even still hear me. All right, folks, I don't know where Isaac is, and I don't know if we can, if anybody has any questions about this national ID and the and the NEC. But suffice it to say, the article is on front page, and it says that the NEC does not have any legal authority to produce biometric IDs. And just so we're clear, I'm not saying the NEC doesn't have the authority to produce IDs. Specifically, biometric IDs can only be created in Liberia by the National Identification Registry. So what happened to your phone? What happened to your camera?
Okay. Man, I don't even understand. I got distracted or I got disconnected somehow, but at least the studio is still there, so you were still connected. And
yes, and so I don't know if we can do we have anybody who wants to come on? Do we want to have anybody has any questions?
I
mean, because
but somebody raised a good point. Yeah, go ahead.
No, somebody raised a point and said what?
Another thing in our country is the poor mentality of, well, I hope they say your people. If you must realize full potential of our country, young people mindset need to change and beginning to look beyond things. That's broad, but again, that speaks to mindset change. And he's right. There's a lot of different mindsets that we have. Go ahead.
And here's my thing. Okay. Nothing changes a person's mindset like their economic situation. Until we can produce an economy that allows people to maximize their potential, where the government is not their focus. So let me give you an example. You take the Philippines, for example. The Philippines has number of call center.
Oh, the amount of call center jobs in the Philippines?
Yes.
Wow. It's a lot. Even in India. Extreme.
Okay,
Just
so
BPO jobs in Philippines.
Okay, so let's say the number of call center jobs in the Philippines are, let's just say they're 150,000. Okay, but those are good paying jobs. Those are jobs, Isaac, that pay as high.
The model we had for a call center in Liberia, we're going to be paying people $400 a month.
Well, okay, so but let me tell you now, if you look at the Philippines, they got jobs that pay as much as $10 an hour. $10 an hour, Isaac, that's $20,000 a year.
Easily.
Okay, so
I'm just saying the average pay in Liberia, what is it? What the average person live on in Liberia? So if somebody making $400 from a call center, they're making good money in Liberia.
Okay, so let's say they can make $1,500 a month rather. Just to let's carry it up, because what we have to do, Isaac, is we have to make these jobs prized. We have to make it so when Mary gets this job, she doesn't care what the government is doing.
I agree.
Okay, because that $1,500, that's $750 she gets every 2 weeks.
But George, let me ask you: in our youth, did we care about government job?
No, but Isaac, but that's because we didn't have the same nature of want that the people have today. When we were growing up, we were not concerned about where we stayed because we grew up in our parents' homes and we were comfortable for the most part. But what I'm saying to you is, even if we brought people,
you can get distracted mid-sentence.
No. I'm doing this calculation, right? So let's say we're paying somebody $1,500 a month, and that person is working 160 hours in that 1 month.
40 hours a week.
Right. We're only paying them $9.35.
Yeah, you can then make it $1,600 since that
right.
40.
Right, they'll make $10 an hour.
160
okay.
hours. Yeah.
Isaac, if you can create 30,000 of these jobs,
and it's doable,
40,000 of these jobs, okay, you can transform the society
very easily. Because at that age, most of those people are spenders. That money would churn and turn over.
It would churn big time. You can work part-time at a call center and you can be a student at the university.
Yes.
Okay? You can work 4 hours a day. But let me tell you now, it's a 24-hour call center.
Well, a question. Yes.
Okay? So when we think about things like these, and we talk about how we need to transform the country and have people not focus, because here's the deal. If you have one of these jobs, your primary concern when it comes to the government is stability and continuity.
Right. Peace, security, stuff like that.
Right. So that your employer can stay. Because if for any reason that employer packs his bag and leaves, the other one, nobody else is coming.
I'm telling you, if we put a serious pool between most of the people, if you can make $500 a month versus running behind political party and say muya muya,
they won't do it.
They will take the 500.
They will take the 500, right?
So
they will take the 500.
I mean, but but government just want to hold these people hostage because that's the way they get support. But hopefully their mindset, like, you know, this person is saying, I can see their name because for some reason it comes in as Facebook user. Their mindset can start to change, that they can see that if jobs are created in our economy, if we can get some peace, we can get stability, because for any 24-hour operations, if I live in or to get to Pempe to be able to come, and if crime is in those areas, it inhibit the opportunity. That's why everything is dependent on the other thing, and that's why we need a much better.
And so now when your representatives are running, they're not running to give you a bag of rice. They're running to tell you what kind of jobs they're trying to bring to your district. Okay, they're running to tell you this is how we're going to improve transportation so you can get to your district, to your job.
Yeah, the issues. It's all about the issues now.
Those are now the issues for you, as opposed to I don't have food to eat. So we can say we want these things to change, but the focus of government has to be expanding economic opportunities. And I believe that the biggest way to expand economic opportunities in Liberia are: 1, agriculture; 2, technology. But all of those things rest on a platform of electricity and power.
And first, you gotta definitely get identification, because
okay, so we'll get the let's just take that as given. You got to have an ID, but we got to have a plan to build a power infrastructure. You're not going to have a call center that doesn't have 24/7 power.
And it can be progressive. It doesn't have to be all in one time. It can be progressive. Nobody building all the rules or providing power for the entire country in 100 days.
But here's the other thing, Isaac. Here's how it works even in the Philippines. When American Airlines does their call center in the Philippines, the people who work for that call center don't work specifically for American Airlines.
No, they work for a private corporation there.
They work for a private corporation of Filipino businessmen. So there's nothing to stop Liberian businessmen from doing this. So now the Liberian businessmen have to talk about, how do we get high-speed internet to Gardnersville, right? Because we want to put a call center there. Maybe we want to put a call center at the St. Paul River Bridge, or somewhere beyond there, Virginia.
Whoa!
What?
How many call center workers are there in the Philippines? Today, the Philippines remains a top business process outsourcing, the BPO, as I just said, destination for the estimated $150 billion BPO industry. More than 1 million Filipinos are employed by call centers.
1 million.
Our whole job sector can be satisfied by call centers.
Yes, because we speak English.
We have the advantage.
We speak English.
People from the street, they come America in a short time, they can talk Siri. We have the advantage.
This is something I know that, if we looked at that's a low-hanging fruit. Because here's the thing, Isaac, with high-speed internet, you don't even need a whole bunch of equipment.
No, you don't. Like you said the other day. What you need? Your earpiece.
Okay. You need an earpiece.
And your voice over IP.
That's all you need. That's why you need the internet. I have an office with 17 employees. We don't have a single telephone on a desktop. None. Your call comes in through your computer. You answer the call. At the end of the day, you put the headset in the charger and you go home.
And no Filipino, they probably got to go 2-3 generations before they can speak the regular
enough. And you can still tell where they are.
Exactly. Without picking there, they can adapt faster. We just really need to push this infrastructure, like you said, get the electricity, get the internet stuff, and hopefully whatever the C-squared people and the U.S. Embassy are doing, to give 1 million Liberians access to the internet will be something that impacts the whole country and really make a difference. But just imagine getting a call center in Nimba or a call center in Basel. You got one. I mean, you got jobs right there that you can keep the people home doing stuff. You decentralize agriculture. You have some kind of climate smart agriculture project in each of the different districts. That only 73, but you expand it. I was talking to somebody. He wants so that 15 counties, 30 in each, 450. Yeah, you want 450 of them around the country, and it's possible. And what happens in that environment? You got solar energy in those communities.
Exactly.
You got water in those communities. You got food in those communities. I mean, folks, it's not rocket science. Trust me. Our company have been able to erect that particular model with solar energy, with water, and planting food in less than 30 days. Less than 30 days. And just imagine doing that around the country. Even if that just communal light the people will start with, where the children can come home and be able to study under that light, or they can be able to talk like a little bit longer. I mean, just that. And then be able to access the internet, be able to more easily charge whatever they have, be able to drink cold water on the regular because it's a communal thing. Come on, man. We can really, really change our country. It's not rocket science. It's not too difficult. It's just about us having committed people who are ready to
and
work.
Vision.
Yeah,
and vision.
Yes, vision. You're right. You got to be able to know where that North Star, that end point that guiding you, that you're going towards. You got to have it. If you don't have it,
you got all of these kids in university. Okay, you could put a call center in Fender.
Now we got a good question, even though we answer it partially. So why is it not happening? The primary thing for me, there's some fundamental things that need to happen. We talk about the identification, which we know, okay? But the environment, government creating that environment, if somebody comes today, let's say when McGee was Minister of State, I want to start a call center. What's in it for me? Like, first question, what's in it for him? How much you giving me? Why a business person who's coming to invest in your country got to give you something? Are you a gatekeeper or you're a door opener? We should be door openers to our economy, especially they bring in Liberian partners to eat on the people. Everybody wants to eat on the people. For every stage of starting a new business, especially one that requires any kind of concession discussion and involve our corrupt lawmakers, it's about eating instead of what's the beneficial outcomes for the people in the country. So that mindset has to change. That's one of the reasons why it's not happening, because the climate that people come to invest in is not solid. Most Liberians can be trained up because there are only limited number of scenarios you go through as a call center person. Limited.
Exactly.
You know,
and they have a script.
Yes, you got your script. We have script.
They have a script.
Judge, you got your
Most
script.
people can, when I worked in a call center before, you can be trained for 3 days.
Yes.
I literally, but okay, so let me put it this way.
And that for people who really troubleshooting, it's just the simplistic calls.
But hold on. So let's say you're doing the call center that I worked in was with an airline. So there's some technical things that you have to learn, and you're literally tested on them. So for example, you have to know the 3-letter code for every airport in the world. Okay, or at least for the airports that your airline flies into.
Right.
So they test you on that. They make sure you know that. They make sure you understand the fare codes and stuff like that. So that whole process,
they just testing for familiarity, because at the end of the day, you have a chart right in front of you that you can use to reference. But you got to know some of the things, and it's not beyond our people to know these things, to be able to, I mean, come on. How many different things happen with a computer? Is somebody even doing support? Even if you're doing cybersecurity or cybersecurity call center? How many different scenarios? What are all the different issues that can come up? It's there. So it's about the environment. If we get it, and the thing is, we actually do have Liberians at high levels in every sector that you can think of in any economy, and they are able to find people, investors. They are able to probably participate in that investment themselves. If it were just an open, enabling environment where competition is what matters, and nobody trying to extort from you, nobody trying to force you to pay bribes. If that was not the case, things would be so much better. Yes, we have infrastructure problems, but at the end of the day, if I really look at what my profit line can be for implementing a call center, I can actually make sure I have high-level solar there, plus redundancy, because the margin between what I get for having a call center situated in Africa versus 1 year is significant. So I can afford to construct in a way that I'm able to maintain my uninterrupted power supply for 24 hours.
Correct.
So it's really, really doable, folks. And we just, really need for citizens to demand that the government lead the right way. And we have not had that. People have become complacent because of the deterioration in governance, and it has become acceptable. Some things are not supposed to be acceptable. Wow, what's up, man? I'm doing good. George, anything else on the agenda?
No, that's it.
Okay. So, folks, I hope we're able to give you some real insight into the LISGIS situation, the issues around Mr. Alex Williams for coming out. We hope we gave you a better understanding of the whole registration thing, the fact that NEC does not have the mandate to do biometric registration. We have the National Identification Registry that is closed by responsibility by law to do that. Unfortunately, they probably don't have the voice or the power within the corridors, so they don't make enough noise to get the money, but they should be the one getting the funding to implement the biometrics. There are just so many ways from a technology perspective that can be the source data, and every other agency can rely on them for that. And if we're putting money into the national identification process and really aggressively registering people, we can do those things. Look, NEC was going to put, I don't know how many people out there for the voter registration or to help them with the biometrics. We got a national identification registry that already has some level of competence towards that. It just needs to be built on. Then the whole census issue with LISGIS, that is something that we really need to look at. Like George said, after we get all this, we're going to start brainstorming who we need to come to the table with to really come up with some kind of white paper solution on how we move forward in trying to balance the census and the entire next schedule, how they really come together. So no questions. That's it for now. We really appreciate the support, the listeners. Stay on the issues. It seems like we don't have some of those people who can't be cussing today, so it's a good thing. So yeah, Christian Williams, I enjoy your points today. They were on point. But picking Cheerio, I know you stay there.
Isaac,
yeah,
there's somebody we need to connect with.
Oh yeah.
So let's get on this call and connect with them first.
All right. Stephen Johnson, your new name is Stephen Johnson, page 2. All right. Oh, I see one new comment here. Let me address that button before I leave. All right. Yeah. Welcome. Yeah. Nimle, thank you for your point, man. We all understand why this stuff not happening, and we really need to change it. So, folks, y'all have a wonderful weekend. I think next week we'll start it Tuesday and Thursday, but it all depends on George. But hey, I'm coming to the motherland very, very soon. I'm really excited about coming to Liberia and looking forward to it. So I'll see you later. Peace.